Welcome to Headliners, the show in which comedians look at the papers in advance of everybody else, thereby saving you the bother of having to read them yourself. I'm Dominic Frisby, and as always, we start with Thursday's headlines. First up, we have the Daily Mail, which has a picture of Carrie, and it says Boris and Carrie's baby hit by COVID. I didn't realise babies could get it, but there you go. And there's also, in the name of God, grow up, a reference to David Davis's speech, which we will be looking at in just a moment. We move on to the Times, and there is a picture of Boris in Parliament, along with the headline, PM fights on as plotters pull back from the brink. Apparently a number of Tory MPs have withdrawn their letters to Mr Brady. There's also isolation rules for infected set to end. That's another story we'll be covering. And so we turn to The Sun, and a rather baffling headline from The Sun, as our Bojo pork pie chart shows, battling PM crust ahead. And there's a picture of a pork pie with various statements on it. Let's move quickly on to the Telegraph for the good of all of us. Johnson, I won't quit if rebels force vote. That's Davis says PM will have to be dragged kicking and screaming from office. There's also union anger after masks are scrapped in classrooms, which brings us nicely on to the Independent. Face masks and isolation axed in end to Plan B. That's another story we'll be covering. Boris's change to that law today. And there's also, in the name of God, go, another reference to that David Davis speech. The Guardian also has, in the name of God, go, Tory anger builds as PM clings on. I don't know, the Guardian is probably pretty happy to be hearing that statement from David Davis. We move on to the FT. Johnson buys time after defection to Labour rallies restive Tory MPs. That's a reference to the Wakeford defection, which is another story we'll be covering. And there's also Unilever rejects call to raise £50 billion bid for GSK unit after investor backlash. That is a story I'm delighted to report that we won't be covering. The Metro has returned to the office. That's a relaxation of the rules, reference to that story. The Mirror has, in the name of God, go, and also a little inset picture of Neville Chamberlain, who also said those words in Parliament. We go to the Eye next. Johnson clings on to power for now. And we have the Daily Express, which also references that David Davis remark. In the name of party unity, go and back PM. The Express is staying loyal. And finally, we have the Daily Star, which manages to, I don't know how it reaches this, but I'll read it out all the same. Our lame duck Prime Minister still refuses to do the right thing. Quack, quack, oops. And I'm not entirely sure what that means, but those are today's headlines.